Hey, this is Marcus Bass, NBA writer with Baller Mindframe and Complex Sports. Today we're talking Clippers basketball, and we're talking with none other than the great Steve Perrin from SB Nation's Clippers blog, clipsnation.com. Steve, how's it going?
Pretty good. How you doing, Marcus?
I'm pretty good, thanks. So we almost saw a Clipper MVP from the All-Star game, but extremely cool. The East took it anyway, so what can you do? But moving ahead in the Clippers' second half of the season and moving towards Thursday's trade deadline, we saw them sign Sasha Vujacic to a 10-day contract. I haven't heard there is any word that he'll get a second 10-day. What's the word going towards the trade deadline on all things considered within the Clippers rotation?
Well, as far as Sasha goes, I haven't heard one way or the other. I'll be up at practice in about an hour, and either he'll be there or he won't. It's been 10 days since the first one, so they're either going to have to sign him to that second one or let him go. I can't imagine that Sasha is in the long-term plans. Doc is obviously fascinated with shooters. He has been the whole time, and I've got a pet theory that he also likes guys that have eliminated him from the playoffs in the past, right? Hedo Turkoglu with the Magic and Sasha with the Lakers.
Right.
He remembers those guys being pretty good. Anyway, I don't see Sasha really having a role. He doesn't add that much compared to what they've already got, especially if JJ's back. He's just not going to get any minutes. But the Clippers do have, some issues. If you look at that first big off the bench, Blake Griffin obviously has been great. DeAndre Jordan's been great, but who do you bring off the bench to be that third big? Hedo's been better than I expected, but you still look at that situation and you figure playoff time, they need somebody better than Hedo Turkoglu to go in and bang for a little bit, especially if you consider the possibility of foul trouble. What are you going to do if Jordan or Griffin gets into any foul trouble? How bad is it going to be if you got to play somebody for extended minutes in the playoffs? So I think that's what they're looking for. I don't think that there's any obvious solutions out there. They don't have a ton of trade chips. They don't have first round picks to offer for a while. They don't have even second-round picks to offer. So it's going to be tough to get anything done just because they can't really offer up a lot of value in return. But we've seen stranger things happen. We've seen people pull off trades out of thin air in some cases. So we'll see what happens out there. There are some guys that are available.
Now, in terms of the big man rotation, who's out there and available right now that you think would be a good fit? I mean, Memphis right now has been playing spectacular basketball since the return of Marc Gasol. They're sort of teetering around that, 7th and 8th seed. Maybe they'll move up, maybe they won't. But it's very possible we're going to see another first-round matchup against Memphis. And I don't think anyone wants to see, Hedo trying to back down or defend Zach Randolph or any of the other guys. And I don't think, we really want to see Hollins matched up against Gasol as well. So is there anyone out there, free agent or, trade otherwise that maybe the Clippers could acquire by Thursday?
Well, I think that you're right about that potential Memphis matchup. A 2-7 is incredibly possible at this point, with the Clippers finishing second and Memphis finishing seventh. And what a nightmare that would be for the Clippers if that were to come to pass. Not that I think they couldn't win it, but it would just be a disaster if they didn't, if once again Memphis came back to haunt them. I think that, Spencer Hawes is available from Philadelphia. It's hard to imagine how that deal could happen from the Clippers standpoint. It doesn't look like they have the value to offer that Philadelphia would be wanting. They're going to be looking for some sort of future value in that. Maybe the Clippers would be willing to include a Reggie Bullock in a deal for Hawes. I like Hawes as a third big for the Clippers. He stretches the floor for Griffin. He's not as bad a defender as people think, in my opinion. He's a big body. He can shoot, obviously, and he's a good rebounder. He's got a reputation as being soft or not very good defensively, but he's actually a pretty good rebounder. He works hard on defense. I think he would be a decent fit. Another guy who's a great fit for them, and again, I have no idea how they could possibly make this work, but our old pal Chris Kaman over with the Lakers would be a really interesting fit next to, filling in between Griffin and Jordan. He can hit that 15-footer. He could spread out the floor a little bit if he was playing next to Griffin. He's another pretty decent rim protector, better than he gets credit for. He's an interesting one. Again, I don't have any idea how that could happen. Now, you've always got guys kicking around out there. Jason Collins is a better post defender than anybody on the Clippers bench right now. How much does he have in the tank? I still think it's entirely possible that someone will put him on their roster for the stretch run. And the Clippers would be a possibility there. The guy can play post defense, and they will need somebody to do some of that at some point. Lamar is still kicking around out there. I haven't heard anything one way or the other with him in recent weeks, probably at least a month since I've heard his name mentioned. But I also have always sort of had the theory that the Clippers are looking and waiting and seeing what else is there, and they think they can always fall back on Lamar as a possibility. We'll see. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't. I feel like they need one more big. It would be great if it was a real quality guy. But there just may not be those options. Oh, the other one that's interesting is Emeka Okafor, but his contract is so valuable to other people, and it also looks like maybe health-wise he's just not going to be able to play. Mm-hmm. I guess there's a real remote possibility that he gets traded to somebody else and then waived, and then he can actually play. But those guys that are looking to trade for him are looking for relief on the injury insurance, and if he can play, then they don't get injury insurance. So it seems like he's probably out of the mix at this point, also.
Yeah, I think Clipper fans would love to see a healthy Lamar Odom, return back to the team, get back into that big man rotation. One of the proponents for Lamar Odom's return was, of course, Matt Barnes, who has been inserted into the starting lineup ahead of Jared Dudley, who started, he's had his struggles this season. There's been reports of tendonitis in his knees. He's having I think his worst shooting year. But touch on Matt Barnes at the 3 right now, and do you think the Clippers can actually win in the postseason with Matt starting there? I think throughout the majority of his career, he's been in a reserve role. So do you think the Clippers can get over the hump with Matt in the postseason?
Oh, well, I think that's not a showstopper from my standpoint. If you look at any great team, some position has to be their weakest position, right? I mean, and that's going to be the Clippers' weakest position in terms of the starting lineup, because hey, every other position is pretty darn good. You've got the best point guard in the league. You've got arguably the best power forward in the league. You've got J.J. Redick and Jamal Crawford are arguably among the best shooting guard tandem in the league, and you've got DeAndre Jordan leading the league in rebounding. So they are really, really solid, incredibly solid at 4 positions. And yeah, the fifth one, the small forward position, is a little shaky right now. I think Matt Barnes is good enough to be the 5th starter on a championship team. Absolutely. I would like to see Matt playing a little bit better defense than he has this season. I feel like that's been the under-publicized step back that he's taken. He's not staying in front of his man as much as you would want him to be. He supposedly is supposed to be that wing stopper for the Clippers, and he just hasn't been. And then Dudley is sort of in the same boat. They're both, okay. They don't kill you, but they're not giving you a ton right now. Dudley's been terrible as a rebounder this season, just unbelievably bad for a forward. His shooting has been not as good as the Clippers had hoped, certainly. It hasn't been that bad, and maybe it will pick up. As you said, he has been struggling with tendonitis. I spoke to him before the All-Star break, and he felt like he was getting really, really close, and he felt like, the 6 days between games during the break was going to make a big difference for him. So we'll see if he comes back rejuvenated. I think Doc is toying with putting Jared back in the starting lineup now that Chris Paul is back. I think he feels like that's a better combination. Matt Barnes being more the slasher to the basket, where those lanes they're going to want to keep open for Chris to drive in, and have Jared be the floor spreader, since he does that better than Matt does. So you may see Dudley back in the starting lineup in the near future.
And, in that second unit, when you have Jamal Crawford, coming off the bench and scoring, 20 here, scoring 25 there, there's not that much of a need for a guy who can consistently shoot the ball. And just like you said, the Clippers would like to get a little bit more out of Matt Barnes on the defensive end of things. And with Reggie Bullock coming on as well, that provides you another viable, offensive option for maybe, 10 minutes, to 15 minutes a game, heading into the postseason, he seems very poised to me. He seems to handle decent moments well. I've seen a few times in the season where he's been in the game in, a crucial possession and has come out playing, decent defense and hitting a couple of wide open shots. So, maybe that's, maybe they want to throw in Bullock, a little bit more minutes heading towards the end of the year. Maybe not, who knows. But speaking of starters and guys that are just playing well and are on fire, Blake Griffin's level of play, since Chris Paul was out, has just been ridiculous. I think one of Blake's criticisms has been that he sort of, accepted the buddy sidekick role to Chris Paul, and hasn't really reached the pinnacle of where his talent should be at this point in his career. But over the last stretch of 15 or so games, he's just been phenomenal. Definitely MVP worthy. But do you see with Chris Paul coming back, and Chris loves to dominate the ball and call the play and sort of be the guy. Do you see Blake Griffin's level of play subsiding, or do you see him kind of continuing the course?
Well, the simple fact of the matter is that there's only one basketball, right? There are 5 guys out there and there's one basketball. So at some level, you can't be the dominant player on your team if somebody else is. That's just simple math. So they will have to share it. There's no question about that. Having said that, let's face facts. Chris Paul is not the Kobe Bryant type superstar. He is a guy that tends to make his teammates better. He more than anything wants to win, and if he feels like getting the ball to Griffin in the right spots is the best way for his team to win, then he's going to do that. Certainly in the first 2 games since Paul has returned from his injury, we haven't seen any drop-off in Blake's touches, in Blake's level of play. So it seems like we are at a new normal for Blake in terms of what he can do and what he's going to do out there. Now, having said that, I never really got any of the criticisms of Blake. I've always thought he was on this progression, but he definitely has stepped it up. There's no question about that. Some of it is just what we always said was going to happen, right? When he starts hitting that jump shot more, then they're going to have to respect it, and that will set up the drive. When he hits his free throws better, then he won't be afraid of that contact. He won't be worried about going to the line. He'll relish the idea of going to the line because he's hitting 75, 80% of his free throws, which is what he's doing now. So a lot of this is just, we knew it was coming. oh, and look, there it is, and it's really, really pretty to see. So he's definitely stepped up his game. It was a normal progression that just all of a sudden all came to a head, and it actually started a little bit before Chris Paul got injured. There was the San Antonio home game where Paul was actually playing was the start of this real tear by Blake Griffin. So a lot of people, I think, conflate it with the injury and say, oh, gee, it didn't happen until he got out of Chris's shadow. Well, it actually had started. Everything had started to come together and fall into place for Blake even before Chris's injury. And I think that it's just, that's who he is now, and he's going to be a handful the rest of the way. Playing next to Chris Paul is going to make him even better.
And, speaking of Blake's criticisms, he takes some pretty hard shots, and not just necessarily from the media, but players alike as well. And I think it's pretty well known now that there are many players in the league, they don't like Blake, from Zach Randolph to, a bunch of other guys as well. I believe, even John Wall said during the All-Star break that Blake didn't deserve to win, his dunk contest title. There just seems to be so much just hatred for Blake. Why do you think that is?
I've given it some thought, and I don't really know, but I have a couple of theories. In particular, veterans tend to not like Blake. The guys that have been in the league a little bit, Andre Miller took a terrible cheap shot on him a few years back. A few other veterans have just, not really liked Blake. It's been pretty clear that they just don't like the guy. I think when you see that, some of that is just a reaction to how easily things have come to him, how much popularity he gained, how quickly he gained it, and I think there's a basic human reaction to that, to say, you punk kid, I'm going to show you. Now, I don't think that's all of it by any means. I mean, not when you look at a Draymond Green taking a cheap shot on him, or any number of other guys that have sort of reacted badly to playing against Blake. And you've played basketball, I've played basketball. There are guys that get under your skin. There are guys that just are, they're always pushing, they're always going hard, they're always doing stuff. And they get under your skin, and I think Blake's one of those guys. He doesn't really take a lot of possessions off. He's always pushing. He's always looking for the advantage. And people ask me, well, does that mean he's a dirty player? It's a different category. He's not taking cheap shots on guys, but he is always leaning on them. And maybe maybe he knows when the ref's not looking, and he gives them a little extra shove when the ref's not looking. Maybe he's that guy. But there's enough, where there's smoke, there's fire, and there's enough smoke there. Blake's doing something to get under guys' skins. There's no question about that. He's a hard worker, and he's a bear to handle down there, and guys get really tired of him, and that's just how it is. And I honestly have difficulty putting myself in the shoes of that other fan, those fans that don't like him, because I don't really get that at all. And obviously he's my guy. He's the guy that's been great for the team that I cheer for. So I see all the good for sure. And I have trouble relating to people that don't like this guy, and even worse. I mean, really, really, really dislike him. But in terms of the players, he's doing something. There's something going on there. Because he's definitely getting a lot of negative attention from players also.
Yeah. Well, and as well, my opinion on it is, I think, just like you said, Blake has received so much accolade this early in his career. And especially, and what's so unusual about it as well, is for a player that hasn't even come close to reaching his ceiling in terms of potential. Charles Barkley originally said once Blake Griffin actually learns how to play basketball and isn't performing on talent alone, he's going to be a great player. And I mean, Blake's getting endorsements and, different things as, someone would, at the complete top of their career, say like, a Kevin Durant or a LeBron James. And I think that's where a lot of that resentment comes from, especially like you said, the veterans who have put in, hard work and have, struggled to get their games to, its peak, play at a very high level, who don't have the same amount of notoriety as Blake does. So, but all in all, at the end of the day, as long as he keeps putting up monster numbers, I'm fine with whoever wants to take a cheap shot at him or, whoever wants to, scuff at his endorsements, because at the end of the day, he's performing, and that's all you can really ask for, as a fan.
Well, and you also have to remember that, until this season, there was a huge advantage to taking a hard foul on Blake Griffin versus letting him have that dunk, right? I mean, when shooting, 60% and below at the line, so it was a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy in terms of the hard fouls that, hey, he's really strong. I can't just give him a touch foul here. He's a bad free throw shooter. He's an incredible finisher. So that's the perfect storm that says hit him hard when he's got you at a disadvantage. When he's got you on the block and you got nothing else to do, you got to hit him. You got to hit him hard and take your chances at the line, and you're probably going to come out ahead in the equation there. That's not the case anymore. He's hitting his free throws better, and I think we'll see fewer of the hard fouls of that variety, which are just, at some level, just smart basketball. Put him on the line rather than letting him dunk on you is a decent decision at some level. But he can end some of that just by making more and more of his free throws.
Okay, absolutely. Now, before I ask you this next question, I have to admit I was one of the few maybe that considered the possibility of a Blake Griffin trade. Not necessarily the trade to New York for Carmelo Anthony, but at the beginning of the season, we've always said for the last maybe 3 to 4 seasons, the Clippers' chances in the postseason rest, solely on DeAndre Jordan and also Blake Griffin and their improvement in the summer. And last year it seems that, I know he was battling a few injuries, especially in the Memphis series, a little bit later towards the end of the year. But it just seemed, the jumper didn't really come around. I know he was working with Bob Tate on that throughout most of the season. The free throws weren't really improving. And at the beginning of the season, I was one of the guys saying, hey, look, if the Timberwolves wanted to offer up Kevin Love to the Clippers, I'd be very hard pressed to say no, but that'd be something you just have to pay attention to. Now, seeing what Blake Griffin can do, especially like you said, over the last 20 games, starting possibly in San Antonio, I think he's Mr. Untouchable. There are a few guys in the league that sort of get that status. I'd say it's LeBron, Kevin Durant. I wouldn't even say Carmelo Anthony is there, and probably Kobe Bryant. But do you think Blake Griffin now is Mr. Untouchable alongside Chris Paul for the Clippers organization?
I think he's actually been untouchable for a while, but possibly not for the best reasons. Donald Sterling loves the guy, and I don't think Donald Sterling would have approved any trade for Blake Griffin for a while now. And if you put your business hat on, the Clippers have sold out something like 110 straight games now. This is a wildly popular player with the fans. He puts butts in seats, and his value to a franchise goes beyond his PER or points or rebounds or anything else. He is a very, very popular player with the fans, and he's a guy that they drafted. He's been with the Clippers his whole career, and he pretty much demarcates the start of a great era for the Clippers, the best era so far. It's sad to say that we're only talking about a guy that's in his 4th year, that he is the guy that started the best era of the franchise's 40-year history, but it's true. So I think he's untouchable for that reason. Now, should someone consider making a trade of Blake Griffin for a Kevin Love? I think that you could make an argument that that would be a really good trade for the Clippers. But I have always said, even last year when these sorts of discussions have come up, I've always said that Blake's ceiling is higher. As great as Love is, it's hard to see where else he goes with it, right? What else is he going to do? But Blake, you look at him and you say he still has, work to do on his footwork in the post. He still can continue to hit the jump shot better, and is doing that. And he's a hard worker. And so we still, as you already said, he's not hit his ceiling yet. He hasn't fulfilled all of his potential. He will get better. Now, the other side of that coin is that he does depend on athleticism a lot, and at some point he will decline, whereas a Love is playing, in a different manner and is not going to lose as much when he loses a step. But that's pretty far down the line, and I don't think anybody's thinking about that right now. So I think he's untouchable for a couple of different reasons. He just means a lot to the Clippers franchise. He means more to the franchise than he would to somebody else, to somebody that he's being traded to.
Interesting. Well, talking about untouchable players, I know you heard the chatter. It's Twitter and the blogosphere seem to just light up, the day of the Miami game a week or so ago, with the possibility of LeBron heading to the Clippers this summer in free agency. And although it may seem extremely far-fetched, I've got to ask you before you head off to Clippers practice, do you see that as a possibility?
It's only a possibility if LeBron makes it a possibility, and that was sort of the gist of Brian Windhorst's article. And bear in mind that when the Clippers play the Heat on national TV on ESPN is going to write a Clippers Heat-focused story, and they're going to fan some flames, in one way or another. So I don't know how much truth was there. I don't know how much there was there in that story. It would all come down to LeBron using his incredible leverage to get his way to a situation that he liked better. He and Chris Paul are close friends. Chris Paul would be the one superstar that a guy like LeBron would perhaps pick out of the crowd and say, that's a guy I want to play with, because he's a guy that, is not going to he's unselfish. He makes his teammates better. He's not going to take focus or touches away from LeBron the way that someone else might. But let's face facts. LeBron's got a pretty darn good situation in Miami already. It's going to have to be incredible for him to look to go somewhere else. But it would be about him. It would be about, him saying, this is the place I want to go, putting the message out to the 28 other teams that he's not going to sign, that he's not going to sign there, that this is where he wants to go, and getting the message to the Heat that says, if you want something for me in return, if you want to get something done where I don't just walk away for nothing, then you need to do a sign and trade to get me to the Clippers, because that's where I want to be. I don't think, I don't see it as a real possibility, but superstars in today's NBA do have an incredible amount of leverage, and if he wanted that to happen, he could probably make it happen.
There it is, straight from the expert. Well, with that, I guess we'll call it wraps, and I want to thank you again, Steve, Mr. Untouchable, from SB Nation's Clipper blog, clipsnation.com. Check him out there for all your Clipper news, analysis, and all other news from Mr. Untouchable himself. Steve, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure, Marcus.
All right, man. Enjoy that Clipper practice.
Thank you.
Bye.